What is going on, everybody? It is Friday, January the 7th, and that means it's time for my news radar. When you have two massive, giant, powerful corporations competing in a similar space, like you do with Microsoft and Google, most of the time friendship is not where you wind up. Even though Microsoft and Google have collaborated in the past, I mean, look, Surface Duo, I think, is a great example. This is a Microsoft hardware running Google software. But it looks today as though that rift between the two of them is still very much present, as Google is about to basically replicate functionality that Microsoft has already got going for itself in its own software. This is coming out of CES here, where Google, this is from Droid Life, by the way, Google's 2022 plans are to connect it all, including Android phones and Windows PCs. Let's scroll down here, and there's a lot of stuff in this article that isn't really relevant to what I wanted to talk about here. On Android devices now, you have something called Fast Pair. You may have seen this. You open up a set of earbuds like the Pixel Buds, and a thing pops up and asks you, hey, do you want to pair to this thing? Are you setting this thing up? This is something that kind of took from Apple with the AirPods. It's really, really good. It's awesome. And so they're pushing this kind of Fast Pair thing to as many things as they possibly can. And that's great because it's super intuitive and it's quick, but there's more to it than just this. They're trying to expand Fast Pair to your PC. And what that means here is that Google announced today that it will add Fast Pair functionality from Android phones to Windows PCs. This will help with Bluetooth accessory setup, sync text messages easier, and allow for better file sharing with Nearby Share. Google says they're working with Acer, HP, and Intel for this action to start. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about taking your Android device and it basically popping up and saying, hey, I detect a PC nearby. Do you want to pair to this thing? And from there, you're going to be able to text from your PC. You're going to be able to share files to your PC using Nearby Share. Now, they're also bringing versions of this functionality to Chrome OS, which is, to me, a long time coming. You're going to be able to do things like, share files back and forth and text message from your Chromebook as well. I don't know why this has taken so long to get to this point, but baby steps, whatever. This is also coming. But if you're a fan of this channel, you probably know about something called Microsoft's Your Phone app, which does exactly what we're talking about here in a lot of ways. We're going to move over here now to an article from Digital Trends where they dig in a bit deeper. Shout out to the author of this article here. If you know, you know. Where he says, now, if all this sounds familiar, it's because this is far from the first attempt to better connect Android phones with Windows. Microsoft already has the Your Phone app on Windows 10 and Windows 11, which connects your Android phone to your computer and has the same exact kind of functionality, but actually more functionality, because you can do things like mirror your screen wirelessly. In fact, I use the Your Phone app whenever I'm showing something on a phone. I use that quite a bit when I want to show you that screen because it's really nice and easy to be able to do it that way. But what's the point of all this? The point is that Google understands that it makes sense for people to want to sit down at their computer, have their phone in their hand. I'm going to put my phone down, put it on a charge or whatever, but I still want to be able to access that phone. I want to be able to maybe see my pictures. I want to, move those files back and forth. I want to answer my text messages now that I'm sitting here with a keyboard in front of me. I want to be able to use that keyboard on my mouse and just stay here instead of picking up my phone every couple of seconds when I need to do something. This makes obvious intuitive sense. So much so that Microsoft is already working on it and has been working on it for quite some time. And Google, rather than saying to Microsoft, hey, let's expand this platform, let's do more with this, they say, no, we're going to do it our own way. We're going to do it with Fast Pair, rather, and we're going to do it our own way. So your stuff is going to be your stuff, and you can do it, but no one's really going to want to use it because what we're going to do is going to be quicker and more intuitive because it's going to work at a more OS device level. And it's going to make stuff difficult for Microsoft. They're going to have to really provide better functionality because the Google method is likely to be more intuitive and quicker. I just think this is really interesting in the sense that it really does sort of speak to this tenuous relationship between Google and Microsoft, where Microsoft is trying to bridge the gap between the two, and Google says, we don't like what you're doing. We're going to do it our own way. We're going to bridge the gap our own way. Like they're trying to bridge their platforms, but they're literally having this like public argument about how they want to do it. I may be blowing this out of proportion, but I did think it was pretty interesting, and I did want to bring it to you guys. Back in September of 2020, Samsung did something rather interesting. They released a device called the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition. And this device took all the things you love about Samsung phones and kept it, but then reduced everything else to be able to get that price down to a more palatable price point. And by doing so, via Android headlines, they were able to sell 10 million of these things, which is not an insignificant amount at all. This thing did very well. And I mean, look, it made sense. This thing was a rock solid device and it launched for $699. However, today in early 2022, the landscape of smartphones is very different, partially because a device like the Pixel 5 for $599 does exist. And I think that's what makes this announcement here, also from Android Headlines, quite interesting to me. The S21 Fan Edition is finally here. So let's talk about what it brings to the table other than just looking like the newer S21 devices. Obviously, you've got your many different color choices, but that's not super relevant to what we're talking about here today. 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, and then you can jump up to 8 gigs of RAM and 256 storage, 4500 milliamp hour battery, 25 watt charging. You get a 12 megapixel main, 12 megapixel ultra wide, and an 8 megapixel telephoto. So none of this stuff is crazy. None of this stuff is really like super over the top impressive. Of course, it is running the Snapdragon 888, but here's the thing. You're going to be looking at $699. So I guess I would ask this. If you're in North America, are you buying this or are you buying the Pixel 5? I think the Pixel 5 probably all around a better device. You're going to get better photography. From some people I've seen, the battery life might be significantly better as well. And I'm not saying this thing is a bad device. Obviously, we don't know that it's a bad device. It's a Samsung thing. It's probably going to be quite good. But for $699 in a world where the Pixel 6 does exist, it seems to be a bit of a hard sell for me. Now, it is important to keep in mind that the Pixel 6 is not globally available, and perhaps that's what Samsung is targeting here with this thing. Perhaps they're going to try and sell this thing in markets where the Pixel 6 is not available. It really is just amazing to me how quickly the smartphone market can shift, because effectively the same device in context a year ago, and everyone was like, wow, what a great deal, what a great device. And now, just that 1 year, a little more than a year later, this thing really just kind of, in my mind, just kind of flopped out. And I don't think really anyone's cared all that much about this thing based on the price and the specs, because there are just so many good mid-range and cheap options for people to buy when it comes to Android phones. And of course, the Pixel is front and center on that. I'd love to know what you guys think about this S21 Fan Edition. What do you think this thing is going to do? Because the first one sold about 10 million units, which is quite good. I'm expecting this thing to sell far fewer than that, but I'd love to know what you guys think about how rapidly the smartphone world has been changing, with folding phones and falling prices really making something like this feel quite boring. And last but not least, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. I've talked about Android 11 on the Surface Duo way too much, but we got to keep talking about it because it's coming, for one. But now I have a bit more information here via Windows Central. Zach Bowden, here we go. Microsoft says Android 11 for Surface Duo will begin rolling out in the next few weeks. Here is the statement from Microsoft themselves. Senior Director of Program Management at Microsoft, Kimmo Litosala. I think I nailed that. We're finalizing the validation and certification for Android 11. We originally planned to deploy Android 11 as an update for Surface Duo in December, but we needed a few more weeks to ensure a great experience for Surface Duo customers. We expect to begin Android 11 rollout in the next few weeks, beginning with unlocked devices. Now, let's kind of break this down here, because there have been thoughts for a while. The rumor was, from Zach himself, from Daniel Rubino on Windows Central, that Android 11 for Surface Duo was done and had been sent to Google for certification, but then, oopsie, the holidays rolled around, that didn't happen, and that's why we are waiting longer. So some people saw this quote and said, oh, that means that that's not the case. Microsoft delayed it, and this wasn't a certification of Google problem. I don't think that's at all what this quote means. I think Microsoft is actually kind of just being nice and not dumping this at the feet of Google, but I think that it still is kind of probably what happened. Not that Google is the reason we don't have Android 11. It's still Microsoft's fault because they waited way too late to send this. But let's kind of look at how the Google certification holiday thing could still be what happened with this quote. We have to think about it like this. We have to think about how long does a certification through Google take. So basically, if you don't know, Microsoft finishes what they think Android 11 should be. They finish up their build. They compile it, they send it to Google, then Google has to test it and say, yep, you're good to go, it's certified, and then Microsoft can then ship that out to devices. How long does that take? Let's say, for instance, it takes about 4 weeks. I'm just throwing a number out, right? 4 weeks. So then let's think about the holidays, right? So if you go back to December, just before the holidays hit, the last Friday before the holidays hit was Friday, December the 17th. So if we're sticking with that kind of random 4-week thought, then that would mean that Microsoft would need to get this thing sent to Google for certification towards the end of November, something like November the 26th, that Friday. And if they sent it to them on, it's January the 3rd, well, then Google's partially through certification. Holidays hit, they go on holiday. Oops, now we're into the new year. And this kind of lines up because there was actually a Surface Duo emulator update that was compiled on the 3rd of December. We also have reports that the final build was compiled by Microsoft in early December as well. So it looks as though Microsoft said, okay, we're done with Android 11 in early December, which meant that when they sent it to Google, Google did not have enough time to certify it before the holidays, push them into the new year. Well, okay, you say, Shane, but they just said they needed a few more weeks to ensure a great experience. Yes, but that's why they sent it. That's why it was compiled in early December. This is my speculation. Microsoft knows about the holidays. They know how long certification takes. These are not surprises to them. These are not mysterious things to them, right? So they knew whatever timeline they needed to get it to Google before to get it out by the end of December. They knew what they needed to do. So when they say they needed a few more weeks to get it done, that's what pushed them to early December, which was too late. They needed to get it sent to them, honestly, probably mid-November, probably just before Thanksgiving, to get it out in December. And that delay, that extra few weeks, pushed them into early December. That was too late. So that's what I think probably happened there. And then we got to look at the rest of that where it says we expect to begin Android 11 rollout in the next few weeks. And of course, this was posted on the 4th of January. You are now reading on the 7th of January. So, I mean, obviously, I'm happy that they finally said something. You know, I wish it was more transparent. I wish that I weren't still sitting here speculating about what went wrong. But that's just the world that we live in. It's Microsoft. It's Google. They're going to be a little bit cagey with stuff like this. Copper, stop that. But it is what it is, and that's where we are. Android 11. Look, it's done. It should be very, very soon at this point. So keep hitting that check for update button on your Surface Duo until eventually something magical does indeed happen. Guys, thanks for making it to the end of this episode of News Radar. Be sure to check back every Monday and Friday for the next episode of News Radar. Thanks for hitting that like button, sharing, subscribing, commenting. All that stuff helps out tremendously. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.